queued up and ready to go. Our next panel for this morning will be on branding, aligning businesses, brand, and behavior. And the moderator is Vanessa Kelly, who's the digital marketing director of the New Georgia Project. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much to Tuskegee for inviting me to moderate this incredible panel discussion. My name is Vanessa Kelly. I am the digital marketing director for the New Georgia Project / New Georgia Project Action Fund, a nonpartisan, nonprofit voting rights organization focused on registering and turning out voters of color, Black and Brown voters, young voters, and LGBTQ voters in the state of Georgia. I want to go ahead and jump right in and welcome our panelists. I'm going to allow you guys to introduce yourselves, and I'm also going to ask you to give us your definition of branding. Portia, if you want to start.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for having me this morning. So my name is Portia Obeng. I'm a social media strategist and LinkedIn coach. So I primarily help women, Black women, stop selling themselves short on LinkedIn so they can be taken seriously and start attracting the money-making opportunities that they deserve. I'm all about Black women getting the money that is owed to them. And then I also do social media strategy. I've been doing social media for a long, long time. My first social media job was way back in 2009, before there was Instagram, before there was TikTok. I've just been on the internet for a very long time. And so I like to help people use the internet more effectively and not letting them get consumed by social media, because it can take over your life. But even though it is my full-time job, I actually do not spend that much time on social outside of work. And then it's funny because I studied marketing in undergrad, and you learn a lot about branding and essentially being able to get people to become loyal customers or clients of a product or a service, or even a place. So like a city may have great branding. And that's what we learned in undergrad. But it's interesting to see how personal branding has evolved and changed so much over time. So now it's really like, how do you get the specific characteristics, the specific qualities, and the specific feelings that a product, service, place, or a person brings you. So when I think about branding, I think about, what is it, that thing that you can distinctively say about, oh, this person, has this brand, or this product has this brand. I think these qualities, I think these characteristics about this product or brand. And now we're adding in the personal aspect of it. And that's what branding means for me.
Wow, that was a great introduction. My name is Levon Lewis. I'm co-founder of Connect Branding and Marketing with my business partner, Sherrod Shackelford. Funny thing is, the New Georgia Project is actually a client of ours. So hello, Vanessa, how are you? They're a great organization doing some great things. We've been in business about 21 years. We started our company in college at that time. And, it's been 100% referral since that time, which we're really proud of. We work with a lot of small businesses, companies like Panasonic, the Home Depot, again, the New Georgia Project, Coca-Cola, to name a few. And we span the entire life cycle of branding, from strategy to visuals to web, the digital space. We've written books for a lot of individuals as well. So that's who we are. My personal definition for branding, I like Portia's definition, but my definition would be how well you communicate your value, right? And I think when we go into business, we carve out an area of business or an industry where we offer value. So how do you communicate that? And you do it through photography, video, logo, color palette, websites, content, messaging, things of that nature. So anybody that's listening that's in business, you have to understand what your value is, and branding dresses it up and helps you communicate that. So that's my definition.
Awesome. Thank you both for giving us that and for being here. Levon, I think what you were just saying in your definition of branding kind of takes me into my next question. As we're here talking entrepreneurship and community economic development, elaborate a little bit more on why branding is important, especially during this time. I think you both actually really touched on it well, but let's elaborate a little bit more.
I think branding is important because if we think about it, I think about branding as kind of an educational tool, right? If I start a company, I'm often in an industry, and if there's 10,000 companies in the industry, I have to look at the market and say, okay, who am I targeting? What am I pricing my product or service as? And how do I get people to essentially care about what I do, right? So branding makes people care, right? And you can you can really cultivate a thing and control how, in a way, how your consumers think. So for an example, right, if you're Mercedes, you don't have to spend $100,000 to get to work, right, on a car, right? And so how they're communicating their value is, okay, status, something like that. So they have to dress the brand up and communicate that level of value to obtain that type of customer, right? So and my thing is, I think branding just definitely communicates all that you are, all that you do in that way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Especially talking about like the value that you bring. I think that's so important that we, like, of course, in our businesses, we're like, I'm amazing, right? I'm doing this thing. People need what I have, but it's like, how do they know what you need if you don't have a cohesive brand? You know, if people can't think of your company, of your product and think, oh, this person has told me that they provide a wonderful experience when it comes to, say, it's like cosmetics. They provide a wonderful experience when it comes to purchasing cosmetics. They have a great shipping process. I know I'm going to get what I deserve. I know I'm going to get what I ordered. But if you haven't communicated that with people through your messaging, through your website, through your social media posts, if you're not cohesive and consistent across all things, that's really not going to be helpful to you, because people, as much as we don't like to believe it, people need to be convinced that you are valuable. I know you know your own value, but people need to understand that if I'm going to spend my money on this, and I'm going to invest my money in this, I need to make sure that it is something of value. So I definitely agree with that.
Definitely, definitely. To that point, how has branding changed during COVID? How are people pivoting? How are people adjusting? How are people grouping and regrouping right now?
Right. The trend I've seen is, I think that people are definitely trending more towards digital. That's the obvious answer, right? Because when the pandemic hit, you couldn't network, you know, in some cases you couldn't go get a job. So it forced people to use their resources to use the digital space to get the word out. I think you'll find more people are becoming subject matter experts as well. They're selling their intellectual property. They're selling their knowledge. They're becoming more of a personality, right? And I piggyback on something Portia just mentioned as well. I also think branding is the culmination of everything you do, right? So that means in the digital space, if I'm, you know, a subject matter expert on something, how consistent am I? How quickly do I respond? If I have a brand presence of, you know, being nice, but I often get mad and curse a client out, right? The culmination of everything you do, you don't realize you have a brand promise, which is your slogan or your mission, right? So when you break that promise, customers don't really align with that, right?
That's
So
brand inconsistency.
right. So it's really is a culmination of every little thing. I mean, it's kind of like if you project the survey on social media and I finally go to your store and it's something as simple as it's dirty, or it's not open on time, or it closed early, or all of those little things, right? So to get back onto the answer, I think people are trending towards, they know they have to show their expertise. Your web presence has to be really strong because you're selling right off of line. So everything has to be clear, concise, visuals are important, messaging has to be on point, and you really have to position yourself to really target your market the first time. So I think that's where it's trending.
Definitely. Portia?
Yeah, I double tap on all of that. I agree with all of that. I give that a like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, I agree with all of those points. Especially, I found also because I do work with a lot of women who are in jobs and transitioning to new jobs, or women who are in jobs and like wanting to be full-time entrepreneurs. A lot of people are understanding that they need this personal brand when it comes to, if they are looking for a new job, or if they are transitioning to being an entrepreneur, and being consistent across all platforms in the messaging that you bring, but then also how you show up. So I think a lot of the times being authentic and true to yourself as a person is very important for your brand. As cliche as it sounds, like how you show up online, you don't need to be this character. You don't need to emulate what other people are doing. Just be very true to yourself. I think that's what I've seen a lot of more, especially in COVID. People being like, well, you know, today I'm wearing shorts and like a beautiful blouse. Or like today, yeah, my house may be a little bit of a mess, but this is true and authentic to my brand. I've seen that people have really been gravitating to that. And then also there has been way more emphasis, especially on video. So like people using video in terms of sharing their messages, making sure that they're consistent across their brand. So as we know, Instagram is going to be like mostly video facing now. So people, being able to be consistent in all places that they're sharing their brand and being way more visual, but showing up as themselves. Like for me, people know they're going to see a bold lip and bright colors when they see me, but like I know there's women who wearing makeup is not authentic to them. So they show up how they want to show up, and people resonate with that and connect with that.
So that's a good point. I want to piggyback on that. First of all, when people see me, they're going to see no hair first. That's the first thing. But but no, she said something very important. Authenticity is the secret to social media to me, because it's kind of like, I think people kind of run from that a little bit, not knowing if they're going to be judged. But it's the biggest thing that connects us all, because everyone's flawed. Everyone wants a reason to like relax. And it's true, because if you look at like LeBron James versus the Lakers, he's always going to have more followers than the Lakers, or Beyonce versus her record company. People have more followers and interest than the company, because the company is more like a cold kind of company versus person selling kind of scenario. While if I see LeBron with his kids and drinking wine and taking his wife, I can relate to that, right? And he's more of a human and a person, and you mix that in with sales, and it's more of an authentic kind of thing. So I would tell people, don't, like what Portia mentioned, don't run from the authenticity. Whoever you are, just be that and perfect your delivery of that, and I think you'll be okay.
And of course, I gotta follow up to something as well, because being authentic, but then also you mentioned telling your story. I think people being able to get down your brand story is like one of the best things that you can do, and people always resonate with, especially your ideal client is probably where you were 3-4 years ago, right? So if you're able to really hone in, like, this is my story, I'll tell you what happened, it's true and authentic to me, people are definitely going to relate to that more. And then it's funny that you also said about people connecting with the individual rather than the company. That's one thing that I tell companies when I work with them, is like, you probably want to get your employees to be more of your advocates than the company itself, because don't nobody want to hear from Netflix. We want to hear from the people who work for like Black People Lead, the black arm of Netflix. Like, we want to hear from people who do that work. We don't want to hear from Netflix. That's
What I'm hearing is authenticity and relatability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So let's pivot just a little bit and talk numbers. Can you guys tell us how, well, it's not even necessarily a pivot. This is all part of it, but how does proper branding drive that traffic? How does proper branding drive traffic and increase revenue?
Well, I can answer that by giving you just a true story about, a particular client. So fun fact. So my story is I met a customer a couple of years ago, and this is a scenario that people don't expect to hear. They were doing a lot of SEO, which if people don't know what that is search engine optimization. It's ways to drive traffic to your site, whether that's blogging, social media, paid ads, or what have you, right? So they did all of that, had a pretty significant budget every month. But when people got to the website, they didn't buy, right? Which is something you didn't expect. You would think that, people are there and they're going to buy, right? But there's just certain ways people process information, certain ways people read, men versus women, old versus young, right? Geographical location, the way we comprehend things, right? So when we began to work with them, we rebuilt the brand, the color palette, the logo, the website, the user experience on the website, and all those things. Didn't change anything with the SEO campaign that they were already doing. So now when people got to the actual site, they knew what to buy, they were educated, they knew how to buy, and it drove sales, right? And I mentioned that branding a lot is how you dress the company up. It's a level of education, and it's a level of telling the customer how to buy from you. How women buy from you is different than how men buy from you, right? It's like, in my studies, about 95% of our decisions are in our subconscious. And so when I bring that into the branding world, even right now, we're on this call, we're all blinking and moving our head, but it's subconscious decisions. You're not trying to nod, right? The same thing in branding, just a color palette, a word, a photo can get a customer to move or buy or drive sales up. And so I think the proper branding and the understanding of customers can drive sales And I think it's very important. Without that, you're just another company in the industry to a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with Levon completely. And then also, I think the thing that he mentioned was like the brand was so cohesive that when people got to the website, they understood what to do. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with people, especially with like young business owners. It's like, well, I do this and I do that and I can do this. I can wash your car and I can braid your hair too. But I think it's like you want to make sure that you have cohesion and you make it as easy as possible for your potential client to make that decision. You know, people get like, what is it, 0.7 seconds when they land on your landing page to make that decision. So you want to make sure that they understand what to do, that they know who you are, and brand cohesion is very important with that. But also, I think what's important for people to understand is that just because you build it doesn't mean they'll buy it. So you, again, have to go back to communicating your value. So that's why everything on the website has to explain, this is what we do. This is what we offer. This is the promise that we have. And everything is cohesive and aligns with your brand. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn was that just because I have a service or an offer, that doesn't mean people are going to buy it. Like they have to understand that, you know, you're getting a great experience with me when you do, you know, buy anything from me. And that is very cohesive with the brand that I present online.
Right. I would also say too, in a lot of cases as business owners, we don't know what we sell in a lot of cases, right? So that sounds like a simple term, but I would say if you're like a hair salon, you don't sell hair, you sell confidence, right? So just knowing what you sell can help with the messaging and the branding. So there's a term in branding called line extensions, if anyone's ever heard of it. And all it means is that you'll have your brand and you extend it based on a particular product. So to go to my point, Apple sells lifestyle, in my opinion. They don't sell gadgets and phones, lifestyle, right? And so within lifestyle, they have phones and extended to tablets and extended to Macs and watches and things of that nature. They're all like things, right? That all communicate lifestyle, right? Which means they could price themselves higher than the competition because they're not selling laptops, right? They're selling lifestyle and we will pay for lifestyle, right? And so I think when it comes to branding, we have to just dig deep. And like I said earlier, understand what's my value, what hole do I fill in the industry? What do I truly sell? How do I connect emotionally with people? And again, wrap it and communicate it.
Absolutely. To your Apple point, I'm an Android person personally, but I tell people, yes, text bubbles. I know the world is falling, the sky is falling. But I tell people all the time that Android is clearly superior, but Apple marketing is above all else in that Android people didn't even know they had portrait mode before iPhoners, but we did.
Wow. Yeah. See, that's the education part I'm talking about. Yeah.
They're lacking.
That's a very good point. Even though you lost a point for Android, that's a very good point. I'm sorry. We're on a panel. I'm sorry.
It got real personal real quick, guys.
I'm kidding.
You know, also,
but no.
I would say to your point about that lifestyle is like, it's exactly that because once you get the iPhone, you get the Mac and it's like, oh, everything is synced. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, oh, let me get this Apple TV. Let me get this Apple Music. And before you know it, you're a walking advertisement for Apple.
Exactly. Right. That's good. It's very important that people create an ecosystem for people to buy into, right? So when you buy one thing that connects to the next and next and next, you have a customer hook that's called brand loyalty, right?
Right. That customer lifetime value just goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So if a person wants to walk away and get another device, they have to say, well, I have to get another laptop, a phone, a watch, never mind. I'll just pay again and stack, right? And so you have to consider these things.
Yeah.
They said in the chat, let's not do this. So we won't do
A friendly fellowship. That's all.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm stuck. I can't leave Apple. I'm stuck. It's not.
They got you. They got you, friend. It's all good. So now that we have really kind of walked through what a brand is and how it affects the bottom line and actually getting those sales, can you guys give some insight onto how to actually build that brand, whether it be like the personal brand that we talked about that has become so important in this very digital time, or if someone is trying to understand how to build their business's brand and identity as well?
Portia, would you like to begin or?
Yeah. I think we've touched on all of the elements that are very important. The most important thing, LaVon, you already said, know what you do. Like that's the most important thing. You must know as a business owner what you do, the services you provide, and the value that you bring. And then from there, you can build your brand. I know people talk about like you mentioned, like your color palette and everything. But to me, the most important thing is when somebody asks you, how can you help me? When there's a client or even a company who's looking to hire somebody for a contract, what is it that you offer to them? What value do you bring, and what results do you deliver, and how can you effectively communicate that in a way that they understand? To me, that is the most important part of establishing your brand, figuring out your brand story, learning how to really articulate that and share it concisely, and making sure that people understand that. And then, of course, you can get your colors and your palettes, make sure that it aligns with you and the feeling that you want people to get when they see your brand. But to me, the story and being able to tell people what you do and how you deliver results and value is the most important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
So
love
you're
that.
saying a brand is not a logo?
Correct.
People will be like, I've been working on my logo for 5 years. I'm like, girl, if you just don't tell people what you do so they can hire you, like, come on.
I just want to put that out there so people were clear.
Very good point. It's definitely a part of the brand, but not the brand, right?
Right.
So I'll tell another story. If anybody lives in the Atlanta area, you've seen Waffle House, right, before. So I give an example. So I think, and like Portia mentioned, we mentioned a lot of important points. I think a very important thing that we miss as business owners is like brand positioning, right? And positioning, in my personal opinion, is the art of telling people why you're different and making a promise to them, right? So oftentimes when it comes to branding, you don't have to have the prettiest thing, it's about the right thing. So when I go to Waffle House, for example, multi-million-dollar corporation, they could spend money on whatever type of branding, right? But if you look at their branding, even if people want to Google it now, it's a simple WH. Is yellow, black. It's a small location. It's cold. It's cramped. People aren't nice. People are paying for their food right over your head. You get it. All these things, right? And they have hard seats, no cushion seats, no Wi-Fi, right?
And everything probably sticky.
Everything's sticky. Food is amazing and quick though, right? And cheap. So what's my point? My point is, in branding, positioning is important, right? They understand that we're a drive-through that you sit in. Most drive-throughs take 15 minutes or so, about how long it takes. They did a study with Waffle House that says if people sit over 17 minutes, they begin to lose money, right? So it's the only place you go to where you eat, order, and they give you the check first, then your food, right? And they don't do it in reverse. Most people, you sit 40 minutes, an hour, then you want dessert and what have you. So they understand that they don't have to be the prettiest or the fanciest. Their position is quick, good, cheap food, right? And so that's why now everything I say all of a sudden makes sense. That's why there's no Wi-Fi. They don't want you to sit. That's why the seats are hard. They don't want you to stay. That's why it's cold and cramped. They don't want you to stay, right? So if you don't know your position or your brand, you would think, oh, we got to make these people comfortable, give them Wi-Fi, not give them that check up front, and you're going to start losing money. Right. So I would tell everybody, just understand truly why you're in business, what's the void, and stick to your position and communicate your position. And like I mentioned before, my definition is it's the art of telling people why you're different and why to choose you over the competition. So as Waffle House, you don't try to be McDonald's or Starbucks or what have you, you're Waffle House. So that's my example. Everybody go get a waffle now. So.
I definitely need one.
I would also say in that as well is that a lot of people, when they're starting their business, they'll look at the competition and say, oh, but there's just so many people who are career coaches, just because I communicate with a lot of career coaches. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of career coaches, but there's only one you. Like there's a certain je ne sais quoi that you bring to any situation, any service. So yeah, being able to position yourself and knowing your lane and staying in your lane is very important. So that was a great point that you brought up.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. Once you've built your brand, you have to analyze what's working, what's not working as you're, bringing people into your website, as you're trying to grow your following on your social medias. Then you have to also, make changes to optimize what you're putting out, right? So my question to you guys is, when it comes to analytics, what are some ways to analyze brand health?
Uh-oh,
Portia?
I think she's
Oh,
froze.
I know.
Well, I can begin
Want to
until she comes
start?
back. All right,
Okay.
so different ways to analyze brand health. You can do it in a lot of different ways because again, like you mentioned, Vanessa, great point that brand isn't just a logo, right? So when you're talking about brand health, is customer response, is revenue, is traffic, um, it's website analytics, it's all these kind of things, right? So you can often do polls, focus groups, you can watch revenue. And when I say revenue, if you sell 5 different things, look at what sells and what doesn't and why, or what seasons of the year you're selling something. If you're slow at Christmas time, why? Is it the competition? Is it something you're doing? So brand health is the culmination of everything you do, right? It's not just, oh, the logo's nice or the website's nice. Just look at the business as a whole and just measure it from there and correct along the way.
Sorry, y'all. My internet likes to be very trifling, but I'm back now. But for in terms of brand health, I know for like social media, particularly, people like to look at followers. Like, oh, if I'm gaining more followers, like people are connecting with me, they're like understanding what I do, they're resonating with me. But I personally, as somebody who's been doing social media for a while, followers are vanity metrics and they really mean nothing at all. If you have people, for me personally, the best thing for me is when somebody sends me a direct message and says, oh, that post you made, oh, that video you made, that really resonated with me. How can I work with you? That's how I know I'm like more in telling people my story and the value that I can bring with them, that I can bring to them. I know that's when I'm doing a good job, is when they are sending me those direct messages, when people are sharing my content. So yeah, you can like something that I share, you can comment on it. But when people reshare it, that's when I know, okay, this really resonated with this person. And then I can keep those people on my radar. For me, those are the best metrics because I could really care less about followers. And of course, if I'm making money, that's a great metric.
She's absolutely right about that. I mean, one DM can make you, $100,000 if you just respond to it, view it as a sales lead.
Right.
Be responsive, respond to it, talk to the person, analyze, quote them. We made a lot of money during the pandemic just like that. The right social media campaign, responding to DMs, converting them into sales. I mean, and then doing interviews, things of that nature. It was amazing. So the numbers don't matter. I like what you mentioned, vanity analytics.
Vanity metrics.
I love that. Like that's key. It's about deepening the relationship with each single person and not big mass numbers.
Right.
I like that.
Engagement, conversions are things that people need to be looking at, not the vanity metrics.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, guys. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, and I've got one more question. We've got 20 something minutes. So I'm going to ask my last question, and then we'll go to the questions in the chat. So in you guys' opinion, we definitely talked about like digital being the move right now. What's next? What should people be looking at, learning, getting comfortable with, and using to help them move forward? Portia, you want to go first?
Yeah. What's next is video will take over our lives. Everything is going to be about video. I mean, TikTok essentially changed the game for people. The way TikTok came in, and I mean, even the way that they marketed themselves just by acquiring. I mean, they acquired an app called Musical.ly that the kids were using a lot. And they basically took Musical.ly and Vine and created this new platform for people. But because of what TikTok has done, Instagram is now like, oh, wait a minute, we are falling behind. We need to focus on video. So even if you don't like being on video, I can give my own story. When I tell you I did not like being on video, when I tell you I bought my ring light, it sat in the box for months. I was anxious. I was shivering in my boots. Let me tell you, I did not want to be on camera, but then I also had to tell myself to get over myself because I have something that people like find valuable. So get over yourself and just focus on helping people. But even if you're not comfortable being in front of camera, you can make a Canva slides and talk over them. You can do a PowerPoint presentation and talk over it. You can do animated videos. One app that I like to use is Adobe Spark Post. You can make videos there. I think it's called Filmora. You can make videos there. Whatever it is, just do videos. I think that is the space for digital. And then also we'll see how much audio impacts. Of course, like podcasts are always going to be, a thing, but we'll see what Clubhouse does if they get it together, because we know that Twitter also added the audio element, but video. That's all I can say.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would add, that's what I was going to say. I just add another element to it. I think to get comfortable doing video, because I was the same way that Portia was, you get this mic and light and you're like, should I? I think
we all are like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the easiest way to get over something like that is and Gary Vaynerchuk, if you guys don't know who that is, does this a lot, is to just start documenting, right? And don't think of it as, well, I have to give 5 tips today. You might want to document that, hey, I'm drinking coffee and this is how I start my day, or I'm prepping for the virtual summit an hour before and this is what I'm doing, and these things that you'll learn from that information over time. People would DM you, respond, buy something, and you're like, oh, they like when I document my breakfast, in which I think 80% or so of things you post should not be salesy, in my opinion. So I think that if I come on every day and say, hey, buy my book, you're going to unfollow me. But if you can see that I have a dog and I live in downtown Atlanta and I like Netflix or what have you, or I drink coffee and you do too, we can relate. Maybe I create some shareable items and tips that you share with somebody else that will help people be more aware of who I am. And so I think to get over that hump, people should just document and grow from there. A lot of this is read and react like football, right? You don't know what's exactly going to work, but you just go. And what doesn't work, you fix it. What does, you keep doing it. And you just read and react. And that's it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's what I tell a lot of my clients as well, is that you just need to do, because that's how you collect data and figure out what's working, what isn't working. And I 100% agree with you about selling. I know people feel very uncomfortable with the term selling, but it's basically just you sharing things that and then every now and then you say, hey, I got this course, or hey, I got this book. But yeah, people connect with you more, and it's back to that authenticity. So
that's what I was just about to say.
Right? You have that dog, you like that coffee or whatever, people connect with you there. And then people really buy into the person, right? So
yeah, just one last point before we move on. Just think of if you sell
all the points.
Just think if you sell anything, right, in person, you're more likely to get a sale from people if you just talk to them. And people are smart. They fill you out. They look at you. They like you. They like your personality. They like your knowledge. They say, hey, how much is it? Rather than me saying, hey, the hot dog is $2. If you get 2 of them, it's $3. And you like, slow down. It's cool,
Right.
So I would view it like that.
Awesome. I was just going to piggyback on the none of us want to be on camera. One thing that I have, I'm a fan of is like, if you are like a maker of things, time-lapse videos of you just doing what you do.
Love it.
That's video content where you don't actually have to be on camera talking and being weird, because, what do I do with my hands? I don't know. So
no, that's perfect. I tell my clients that as well. Like, things to you that may seem boring are really fascinating to other people, because again, your ideal client is probably somebody who was 3 years ago. So they want to see your process. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, I love that point. It's funny because I did a time-lapse video. So in my company, I handle creative, right? And so one day I thought it would be really boring if people saw me draw a logo, right? So I would go to I went on vacation to St. Lucia. It didn't get that many likes, showed that, right? But I did just one random Sunday. No. I'm making a point, but to your point. I did a random Sunday time-lapsing, drawing a logo and turning it into something. It got 6,000 views in an hour. And I was like, wow. People
love to see people do things that they could never do, or that they feel they could never do, or that they wish they could do.
Yeah, right. But I thought that was boring. I waited days before I did it. But that's the thing people were fascinated in. Yeah, so good point, Vanessa.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. This has been great. We've got a couple questions in the chat. And we've got about 15, 16 minutes. What would you say to someone starting a marketing consulting business but doesn't have a large following on social media? That's a good question.
I can take that. who cares about those followers? What you you just need one. I think a lot of the times people are like, oh, I need to do a survey. I need to collect. No, get started, because the best way for you to learn is just by getting started. You just need to do. You may start off, I know for me, I started off doing like all social media, and then also resume services and LinkedIn. And the more I worked with clients, the more I was like, I don't like doing resumes. I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm going to focus solely on LinkedIn. What you need to do is just get online, create your post, say, hey, I offer these services. You may take like 2 free clients that are your friends or family members, no more than 2. After that, you get your testimonials, you put them on social media, on your website, whatever. You don't even need a website, put them on social media. People just need to be able to reach out to you, and then you can just start, doing your services. Just get started. Stop thinking about it. Whoever asked it, get started today.
I 100% agree. What I would add with that is, don't be afraid to do free work, right? So here's an example. If you don't have the resume or portfolio to attract like your Coca-Colas of the world, something like that, and you want to do business on that level, you might get an opportunity with like a Coca-Cola or something smaller, and they won't hire you. Say, hey, I do this or that for free. Gain that credibility, get that logo, that stuff in your portfolio, and then you can sell to the next person for years. You can say, hey, yeah, I work with Coke in this and that, or what have you. It may not be Coke. It may be anybody in your industry that's relevant like that. Not saying you have to, but don't be afraid to just play the long-term game. Because if you get something big in your portfolio as a marketing company, for 10 years, you can sell based off of that, right? You can just do it, whether they pay you or not. You can just say, that's my client, that's what I did. And so just think bigger than in the moment, and just try to grow.
I do a lot of practice stuff. If you are, again, a maker of things, I tend to, like anybody in my life that needs a gift, if like I'm working on a new t-shirt making process, here you get a t-shirt and you get a t-shirt, but I'm going to record the process and I'm going to put it up as something, you don't know if somebody paid for it or not, like I'm going to use my practice pieces as content as well to, again, tell that story, allow you to connect with me and what I do. So awesome suggestions, guys. Have another question here. Is bridging personal brand and professional brand necessary to be more successful in today's climate?
It depends, right? So I think if they're both connected, yeah, right. So if I am, I guess, let's use same example. If I'm an executive at like Coke, right, and I have a personal brand and I speak on leadership and all these things, but I might want to break off and sell hot dogs, right? I think we have to look at the demographic of who we're targeting, right? In my professional world, I have a job, and maybe people call me because of the clout of that job to speak. Maybe I get paid, and maybe I'll turn it into a book one day, teach people leadership, maybe, right? But if I just want to sell hot dogs, that's targeting a totally different demographic. They're different, right? Or if I take the same example and I want to use that professional brand and actually break off and write books and do TED Talks and all that stuff, then they should be cohesive because it's targeting very similar demographics. And
with similar needs.
Exactly. So I would tell a person to answer that question by looking at, who am I targeting? What Vanessa just mentioned, what do they need? And if they're similar, they should be cohesive. If not, they should be completely different.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think somebody who does a great job at this is Bozoma St. John, who is at Netflix. She's like the queen of marketing, who has been able to like position herself as this go-to person for marketing. Like she decides where she takes her talents, right? Like I call her like the LeBron James of marketing. Like I decide where I want to go. But then she's also been able to sell her marketing expertise and like being a boss expertise as her own personal brand. So I think she's done a great job of being professional. I'm the marketing go-to person. And then like personally, I will teach you how to get there by doing these things. So I completely agree. Like if there's cohesion, go with it. If there's no cohesion, then yeah, forget the professional brand and just go with the personal.
All right. Awesome. There's another question in the chat. Is the approach to branding different for a service as opposed to a product, or are the basics the same?
I would say they're different, in my opinion. I think because you have to remember, a service is an intangible thing, right? Oftentimes when you sell a service, you're painting a picture of something that doesn't exist, right? So if it, and then a product or something like that does exist. So if I have an iPhone, you could just buy that offline, whether I sell it to you or not, if you like it or what have you. So it has to be branded, marketed, communicated in a certain way. If I'm selling you branding services to a bakery that you've opened, I have to talk to you, sell it, paint a picture of what doesn't exist, and convince you that this is what you need, and then price it and sell it, right? And so I think the approaches and how you brand them, the messaging around the two are completely different. You know, it's the difference between, again, like Apple and an accountant, you know, or something like that. So, or a branding firm and Coca-Cola, it's totally different how you communicate it.
Would you say it's like selling the story versus selling like the use case, the service versus the product?
Yeah, I think in some cases, in both worlds, story is relevant, right? Like even if you go back to Apple, we knew the story of Steve Jobs for a long time. Started in the garage. It was his partner Steve, he was the creative and the salesperson, and they did the Apple One, the Apple Two, and here we are. So that's a product, but they still have a story, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just, I think every brand should have a story that people connect to, but I do think the approach in selling and branding it is quite different.
I completely agree with that. In my opinion, I feel like it might be a little bit more difficult to sell services because I think we're more transitioning into more of a service-based economy. So like before like Uber, right? And like Uber Eats and all of these services that we pay for. And then Lavanya also mentioned people selling their expertise now and like online courses. Like even now more is like being normalized of like hiring a cleaning service or like, you know, hiring people to do these various services for you. Whereas I think we've been conditioned to buy products, right? Like you got to buy this product because you need this, you know, like you need to wash your hair or you need to brush your teeth. Like I think it's more ingrained for us to buy products other than services. So I do think there needs to be more of the communication of the value in the service when you are talking about selling your service, you know, building a brand as a service provider, really communicating. I'll go back to it 1,000 times, you know, the value and how you're going to deliver the results and how you're going to just make sure you follow through on that promise.
Right. Or you'll take different services and products, right? You'll take, for an example, like if I sell you a Ferrari, it's like what Portia just mentioned, I have to sell it, do ads in a certain particular place or things of that nature. But there are some products that don't require a lot of branding and selling. For example, milk, right? My customer is kind of the grocery store, not really you know, in a way, right? And it requires less branding and things of that nature. It's more of a convenience thing, milk, tissue, things like that. And so those sales kind of increase. If there's a pandemic, everybody's buying tissue, right? Whether you brand it or not, it's going, what brand, it doesn't matter, right? And then when things are fine, they decrease a little. It's just everyday needs. So it just really depends on what it is.
I'm going to disagree with you on milk.
I understand.
You understand why. For everyone else, just briefly, we got a last couple of minutes. Yeah. I worked in the magazine distribution space. So when you're talking about products in stores that seem very generic to us, on the backside, those brands are fighting for shelf space. They're fighting for, you know, how much room do you get this way on the shelf? How much room this way? You want to be eye level to get the most likely buys. So it's a whole grocery store marketing is a beast, guys. Just so you know, if you have a product you're trying to get into a store, it's a lot. Start doing your research now. Yeah. But do we have any other questions? I'm trying to see if anybody dropped anything else. We've got a few moments. Do you guys have any closing remarks, thoughts that you want to leave with everyone before we go?
There was one. Did you ask the question in the chat about, oh yeah, you did. Okay, yeah, we did that one. Okay, yeah.
I didn't miss anything.
We're good.
Okay.
Do I have any closing? Yeah, just like, I would just say, get started today. I know you've been working on your business plan for a long time. I know you've been saying that, you know, I need to do this. I need to get more research. I need to do that. Just get started today, because the best way for you to learn is by learning on the job. Of course, a brand is more than a logo. It is way more than a logo. If you don't have a logo, That's okay. There's some people who like I really admire, who are like really great career coaches on LinkedIn, just because that's the space that I'm in. And some of them don't even have websites. Like they just are able to communicate so clearly that when you work with me, this is what you will get. They show up consistently as the same person every single time they are on social, which I think is also another key component of branding is that, yeah, like you can show up, 3 times a week on LinkedIn, you can show up 3 times a day on Instagram stories, but are you showing up as that same person who, when somebody works with you, they get the experience that you have been selling them online? And I know the word selling may not sound comfortable, but essentially when you get online, when you're sharing your messaging, when you're sharing your stories, you are selling, even though it may be like, hey, this is just me going to get my nails done. That is a part of who you are and your experience and your personal brand. So I would just say, get started today. Be very true to yourself. Only do things that work for you. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would tell people that, when people go into business, we all have this fairy tale, we're going to be rich and all these kind of things, but you have to decide what success looks like to you, right? So it could be, I just want to start a lifestyle company, something that gives me some cash flow and I live well, I don't want employees, or you might want 200 employees, right? So what success looks like for you, you've heard my next statement before, do what you love. You have to do what you love because it may be some nights that require 16-hour days. And if you love it, it doesn't feel like 16 hours. If you hate it, it feels like 24 hours, right? So when you bump into challenges, all these things, when cash flow isn't the way it needs to be, you have to really love it to fight through it and have like people around, right? So I say all that to say is that most of the time, in my opinion, the journey of entrepreneurship is actually the destination. That's not a place you get to, right? The journey is the destination and have fun along the way. So if I say, hey, I want to make $10 million in a year, I'm going to get to $10 million and like, well, I want to do 15. Then I get to 15, I want to do 20, right? Because that's not the true destination. The destination is figuring out how to do that and having fun with the people around me doing it, the journey, right? So do what you love, enjoy it, find out where you carve your hole in the industry and just go.
Amen. I support that.
Plus.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, definitely. And this is something I think both of you guys have touched on is, I don't think either of you quite said it this way, but like not chasing the money and doing what you're actually passionate about. Just a kind of personal insight. I've gotten into freelance photography. And so people are like, oh, do you do weddings? No. Exactly. Like that's where the money is, but no, you crazy bride people are not going to get me. Exactly. It's not worth it. I would be sad and hating every moment of it. So definitely doing what you are passionate about is key.
That's 100% true. Great example.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example. Yeah, because if you're chasing the money, it's going to start eating you up. It'll be chasing you.
Yeah, and it gives you a bad perspective. Example, if you say I want to do $1 million and you make 700,000, which is phenomenal, but you'll beat yourself up because you didn't do $1 million. And
you'd be like, and I was miserable the whole time. Didn't even hit,
Yeah, right. But if you go get a job, it's way less. And so it's kind of like you just have to have the right perspective. What is success to you? It's just what is it? Is it good health? Is it time with my kids? Is it money? Whatever it is it freedom? Figure that out and just do you.
Amen. Yeah, just do you. Do what you love.
So if you don't want to do weddings, don't do weddings.
Yeah, don't do those weddings.
I'm in full support.
Some people love weddings. If you love weddings, do weddings, but don't call me to do your wedding.
That's right. That's right.
I think we put it in the chat, but do you guys want to just give everybody your socials real quick and then we're going to roll?
Yes, on Instagram, you can find me at Lavon Lewis, LAVONLEWIS. Same thing on LinkedIn. My website is brandingconnected.com. I would love you guys to go there, hit me up, let me know what you think about the work. Again, brandingconnected.com.
Yeah, and I'm only on, I have Instagram, but I don't use that. I'm only mostly on LinkedIn. So Portia Obing, I dropped it in the chat as well. That's my LinkedIn. That's the best way to get in contact with me. And then my website, PortiaObing.com. Everything is bright and yellow.
I love yellow. Like mustard is my jam. So I love that.
That's everything you see with me. It's gonna be bright. It's gonna be a lot of colors.
I love it. My personal social media is at Pretty Social ATL, all spelled normally, Pretty Social ATL. And then I'm also going to plug New Georgia Project because we be out here doing the work. So check us out at New Georgia Project. Everything is spelled out there as well. Thank you again to Tuskegee for having us. This has been awesome. Thank you, Levon, Portia. Y'all are great. Y'all my new besties. You didn't even know it, but that's happening.
Both of you all are in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I live in DC.
DC
Tell us when you're coming to visit.
DC is awesome, but you're missing out.
I really think
I
I
love
can see
DC.
the house from Levon's like out his window.
Oh, really?
I think
Possibly.
we're pretty cool.
DC, Atlanta. What's the difference? We're both Black.
I love DC. I love DC though, honestly.
I do too.
So you only have a little bit better food. That's it. That's the only thing.
That's it. And weather.
Oh,
Except for today, it's raining.
you're right.
We win. All right. Thanks, y'all. We're done here.